If everyone went vegan, what would happen to the animals? They would just like overrun the planet. What if you were stuck on a deserted island and you could only eat meat? Where do you get your protein? Why are you guys focusing on animal suffering when there's so much suffering with humans? Is humanely meat better? Don't you need meat to be healthy? Don't plants feel pain? Is vegan food more expensive? What's wrong with dairy and eggs? Hey there, welcome back to Damn Tasty Vegan. It's your friend Maria Rose. So if you're brand new to veganism, you probably have a lot of questions and you're probably getting asked a ton of questions. So today we're gonna dive right in and I'm going to answer common questions about veganism. So the first one we always hear is, where do you get your protein? So the simple answer is nuts, beans, lentils, quinoa, tofu, tempeh, seitan, vegan meats. It's super easy to get protein as a vegan. Nothing you need to worry about. Just make sure that you eat beans on a regular basis because they contain the amino acid lysine, which is only in a handful of certain plant foods. Most of the population is deficient in fiber. So when someone asks you where to get your protein, you can ask them where do they get their fiber. Fiber is only found in plant foods. It is so good for building and developing and maintaining a healthy gut microbiome, and we need a lot of fiber to do that. So fiber is also important. Just make sure that you're eating enough foods. If you feel weak and tired, it just means you need to eat more food. Another question I hear a lot is, what's wrong with dairy and eggs? Like, it doesn't kill the animals. Why don't vegans eat that? And the reason being is that we've been conditioned to think we need these products in the first place. It's kind of weird when you think about what these products actually are. Like, an egg is the period of a chicken, and milk is the beverage that's intended to grow a baby calf into a large couple 100-pound cow. And we don't drink human breast milk as adults, so why do we think we need to eat like the breast milk of another species? But all of that aside, every single animal in the industry ends up getting killed at a fraction of their lifespan. Cows can live to be 20 years old and they're often killed around 3-4 years old. Egg-laying hens always end up in the slaughterhouse at a fraction of their life. Baby male chicks and baby male cows are no good to the industry. Baby male cows end up as veal or get raised to be beef, and baby male chicks are thrown into grinders alive or put in plastic bags to suffocate. Even if you get a backyard hen, they usually come from hatcheries where they do this process of getting rid of the male chicks. So yeah, all of the animals end up in a slaughterhouse at a fraction of their lives. And in order for the dairy industry to be profitable, they have to take the baby cows away from the mama cows, usually within 24 hours. And then they're usually raised in like pens by themselves or with like a couple other like baby calves. And then if they're males, they're turned into veal, and there's no need for us to eat dairy. There are so many delicious alternatives. If you can, buy oat milk, then why not? If you're able to right now, then why support it with your money? Next question is vegan food more expensive? So yes, like the vegan mock meats and the vegan cheeses are a little bit more expensive, but whole plant foods are the cheapest foods around. It's what people eat in the poorest parts of the world: beans, rice, frozen veggies, nuts and seeds. And the price of dairy and meat is artificially cheap because of government subsidies. So we're paying for the price of cheese and dairy whether or not, we know it's either through taxes or through our health, paying medical bills later on, paying for medication, high blood pressure, cholesterol medication. We're gonna pay for it eventually, so we might as well pay for good health now. Eat those whole fruits and veggies, and veganism can be as cheap as you'd like. And speaking of, whole fruits and veggies, I do want to touch upon the fact that there are accessibility issues. And if you are in that instance where you don't have access to, fruits and veggies, frozen veggies, rice, grains, veganism is about doing the best that you can as is practicable and possible. So if you're not able to do it in certain instances, if you don't have access to these foods all the time, do it to the best of your ability. Like, vegans aren't trashing people like in those situations. And that's something that we all can work on, better access to whole plant foods. The next question we hear a lot is, don't plants feel pain? And the only time this ever comes up is in response to vegans. It never comes up in any other situations. It's like Blue Lives Matter. It only comes up as a way to negate Black Lives Matter. You don't see people like mowing their lawns and like crying like, oh, I'm hurting the grass. Like, yes, plants are living things, but they cannot feel pain. They do not have a brain and a central nervous system. And that's what you need in order to feel pain, in order to suffer. Veganism is about minimizing suffering as much as is practical and possible. So if you really did care about plants, think about all of the grains and corn and grass that we have to raise, and then we feed it to the cows. So you're actually killing more plants eating animals because you have to feed plants to those animals. Is humanely meat better? So humane meat started as a way for the meat and dairy industry to stay in the market once they saw that people were moving away from eating meat after seeing these expose videos that activists took of the inside of slaughterhouses and the inside of factory farms. Think about it this way. Does killing an animal that doesn't want to die help the animal? No, it doesn't. So if there's ways for you to not eat that meat, if you can survive without eating meat, which we can if you have access to certain foods. I know there's people who live in cold areas, indigenous cultures. Why raise an animal just to kill it for your taste pleasure when you don't need to anymore? Yes, there was a time in our evolution when, food was scarce, so we started to, hunt, and it supplemented our gathering. Nowadays we have access to, grocery stores, and we don't need to do this anymore. And we're eating like an insane amount of animals as well, and we're causing so much suffering to these animals. Not only is humanely raised meat cruel because the animal still ends up in the same slaughterhouse as factory farmed animals, they end up in the same slaughterhouse. It's also worse for the environment because it would take about 3 Earths to be able to support every person eating grass-fed beef. So there's just not enough room on the planet to do this unless people ate a fraction of the meat that they're eating. And then when you get to that point, what's the point of even eating it at that point? Because we can survive without it. We can be healthy and thrive without it. So humanely raised meat is just a nice little lie that the industry tells us to make us feel better about the fact that we're still murdering animals when we don't need to. Can you be an athlete and be vegan? And yes, you absolutely can. There are many Olympic athletes that are vegan. There are many professional athletes that are vegan and thrive. And they say how much better their performance gets after becoming vegan. So if you want some proof of this, watch the movie The Game Changers. There's tons of vegan athletes in it. Whole plant foods are so good for our body. They're so good for our recovery. And that just makes for a better performance. There are many vegan bodybuilders. You can absolutely build muscle on a vegan diet. Just look up on YouTube vegan bodybuilders. There's tons of them. So yes, it's absolutely possible. And being plant-based, there's so many studies to back up how healthy it is for us. Another question I hear a lot is, don't cows need to be milked? Cows produce milk only because they have been impregnated and given birth. Cows don't need to be milked when we leave them alone and we let the baby be with the mom, and the baby will drink the milk. The fact that we separate the babies from the moms, yes, they do need to be milked in that case because we're separating the babies from the moms so that we can steal the baby's milk to put in our cereal. If you want to learn more about the cruelty of the dairy industry, make sure to watch Dairy is Scary on YouTube. It's only 5 minutes long, and it just shows the everyday standard practices of the dairy industry. It's a really fucked up process, and it's so cruel when you think about it. Like put humans in their place and just think about how fucked up it is that we artificially impregnate these cows, we take away the baby, we exploit the mom for her breast milk, and then we artificially inseminate her 2 or 3 more times, like once a year, and then eventually we turn her into hamburger meat. And there's no need to do it anymore, especially when there's so many alternatives. So no, cows don't need to be milked. That's what their babies are for. What if you were stuck on a deserted island and you could only eat meat? It's like, yeah, if you're stuck in a survival situation, do what you have to do to survive, but we're not in that situation, and it's not a way to justify breeding and raising billions of animals a year only to put them in a life of suffering and eventual, getting a bolt gun to their head. If everyone went vegan, what would happen to the animals? They would just overrun the planet. The only reason we have so many farmed animals is the fact that we breed them to kill them. So what would happen if everyone went vegan is no one would do it overnight. It would be a gradual process, supply and demand. There would be less demand for it. So the farmers would breed the animals less and less. So there would be less of a population issue. The small amount of animals that are eventually left could go to sanctuaries and whatnot eventually. This is just another stupid excuse. Another common question is, don't you need meat to be healthy, to survive? And the answer is no, we don't. Every world-renowned group of nutritionists says that a well-planned plant-based diet is healthy for all stages of life. It's backed up by science, we don't need it. Totally fine. Why are you guys focusing on animal suffering when there's so much suffering with humans? I don't think that you can only be focused on one thing at a time. A lot of vegans are aware of human suffering. Just within the meat and dairy industry, there's so much human suffering. Slaughterhouse workers have the highest cases of PTSD. Most of the workers in slaughterhouses are immigrants, and of those immigrants, a lot of them are undocumented immigrants. So there are so many cases of human rights violations. I mean, just look at what happened with COVID, like all the slaughterhouse workers that came down with COVID because they were forced to go to work and work in these small spaces close to one another. There's no reason why you can't be a vegan and also a human rights activist and, you know, into different social justice issues. So yeah, so that's it for now. I hope that these questions helped you out a little bit. Let me know if you have any other questions. It was great hanging out with you all today, and I will see you all in the next video. Thanks. Bye.